In this session, we're going to speak about hinges on eyeglasses and why they break. It's important when examining a broken eyeglass frame to understand what it is that has broken and how best to fix it. This is a plastic frame with plastic temples, which has metal, as you can see here, metal hinges. I want to begin by first going back a bit to when hinges were all metal and were riveted to the frame itself. Here is an example of a classic 1950s cat's eye. This happens to be an aircraft aluminum. It was made by the American Optical Company. Very, very nice piece. The thing to look at, which is kind of important, is that the hinges themselves, two separate pieces, each had a certain number of eyelets on it. Eyelets being the small circular holes that the hinge screw passes through. Those plates were riveted, and you can see very clearly the rivet heads here. See if we can get that just a little bit closer. Sometimes it would leave two rivet holes on the back side. Sometimes it would be formed as a decorative plate, which then had the rivets passing through. Those were D-plates, and they were very reliable. They lasted a very long time. This particular one has three on the frame side, and when we were talking about a hinge, the frame side versus the temple arm side is how we discuss what has broken in a hinge. For example, here is just one tray of the large assortment of hinges that we keep here at Frame Fixers. This is a D-plate hinge set that's actually got 7 leaves, 4 on the receiver plate, 3 on the temple arm. And I'll hold it this way. You can imagine the frame front being here, this plate being riveted to the frame front itself, this plate being riveted to the temple arm. In fact, you can see the two holes that those two rivets pass through. So you have to maintain not only a variety of different kinds of metal hinges to repair those pieces, but you also have to maintain a wide variety of rivet sets, and that's what these are. These are rivet sets, ready to rivet D-plate hinges back onto the metal or plastic fronts or arms of a temple arm. Now, why is that important? Well, if it breaks past the hinge on the temple arm, you're fixing the temple arm. It's not a broken hinge. And many times people will say, I broke the hinge on my glasses, but the hinge is actually quite fine, and it has broken somewhere in the body of the temple arm. Conversely, the temple arm might be completely fine, and the hinge may have pulled away from the frame front, or in some cases may have broken across the triangle where that particular part is affixed, and produces a completely different repair problem than fixing the hinge. When we do need to fix the hinge, it's normally a matter of unriveting a metal hinge from a frame of that type and supplying a new one. You can see how these come apart. Like, it's a really good fit there too. You can see the 4 receiving eyelets. There's the 3 that go on the temple arm. And of course the hinge screw goes through the center. Well, that evolved, not necessarily always in a good way, to Thermo Set hinges. That is, hinges that are set by heating the base anchor of one side of the hinge. We have actually a hemostat, which is electronically heated, that heats that unit up, and then we have an alignment jig where it's pressed into the plastic and set to receive the other half from the other side. Now, the Thermo Set hinge, when it's removed, leaves an opening like that. This is the well in which the anchor of the hinge is heated and sunk into. We also have a virgin xyle powder that we place in there that melts and replaces that which was lost when the original one was taken out. The important part is it's two different methods of attaching the metal hinge to the eyeglass. One using a Thermo Set plastic, one using rivets like that. And that's the introduction to how your hinge is affixed to either the frame front or to the temple arm itself. Now, having gone into that, we go the next step in the evolutionary ladder, which was when we went to plastic hinges. That is, hinges in which the arm and the frame front are all plastic, but instead of including a metal hinge at the spot at which these two are attached to each other by inserting one of these, they actually molded the plastic, and you can see that particular piece sticking up right there. This is unfortunately becoming a very frequent repair on some fairly well-known and expensive eyeglasses, where we can see sometimes the outline of where it was originally designed and had a metal hinge, and they basically took that frame front, placed it in a mold, and let the same plastic that forms the frame front form the hinge. Obviously, if you overstress a given material beyond its capability to withstand flexing and torsion twists, etc., it's going to snap. And many times, what we wind up doing when a piece of plastic like this is broken is we'll actually revert and go back to a metal set hinge, where we'll take a metal equivalent from another source and actually Thermo Set it into that. We don't usually rivet them in. We usually use a Thermo Set hinge. And that makes this far stronger than it was when it was manufactured, probably returns it back to what it used to be in the prior version of that model, and it lasts forever. Very, very hard to break those large Thermo Set hinges. So, in looking at a broken frame, we're looking at whether the hinge itself is broken or whether it's broken at the attachment point to either the frame front or to the temple arm. And then we're looking at replacing either the entire hinge or just the section that has broken on either the frame front or on the temple arm itself.